Ole'Pops here. How's the YTPC doing? It's been a while since I've just come to hang out with you without a VR or a GAW or a Yabo or something. I got something on my mind, something I want to share with y'all today. Somebody I want to introduce you to. I don't know if you can see that or not. I hope you can. That's Dan, Joe, and Wendell. Dan being the eldest. Just got here. And then Wendell being the middle. And then Joe being the baby boy of Herbert and Joanne Jones. The picture was taken, I'd say a couple years ago, and that's a pretty bad reproduction of the picture. It's a treasure to me. That's Herbert Jones. That's my dad. He died at the age of 81 or 2. I don't remember right off. But we lost him in 2010. We lost him of Alzheimer's. He was a fine man. He was a professor for 38 years at this university, MTSU, here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. He started his education at the University of Cumberland in Lebanon. Then he went to University of Knoxville, University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Then he went to the University of Alabama, was a Crimson Tide. And from there, he transferred and got his master's and did his PhD work at MTSU. This was my mother. Well, can't do it without getting a glare. Her name was Joanne Davis Jones. Not Joanne, but Joe Ann Davis. We lost her in 2012. She was a month from being 80. She died of liver failure. Sad part about it, she wasn't a drinker. I'm smoking a 7L 644 and some of Corvette Jim's fruitcake. Thank you, Corvette Jim. It's larping. It's just as good today as it was the day you sent it to me. Been talking to a couple of buddies of mine, and I mean some real good buddies that we make on the YTPC. Listening to some videos that they have put out concerning their children, and been thinking about my children and my brothers and my parents, and the things that I've learned from my parents that I passed on to my children, and how I'm getting on up there in age and my kids are having kids. Got to thinking about my son. My son's moved to Australia, and he's opened up a restaurant there. If anybody's going to Cairns, Australia, there's a little place in Cairns called the Element. It's a restaurant there. My son owns that. If y'all get a chance, if you're going there, stop by and try the food and tell him Ole'Pops says hey, and tell him his dad loves him and misses him. But I got to thinking about all the things that my dad and my mom taught me through life, and things that I'd passed on to them. And I was listening to Cherry's VR response about things that he liked to pass on to his children. And I got to thinking about things that my dad and my mother taught me. My dad taught me irony. He taught me that if I kept on crying, he'd give me something to cry about. I know y'all heard that 1,000 times. And my mama, she taught me foresight. She taught me always wear a clean pair of underwear. Just in case I was in a car wreck. Good thing to know, right? Daddy taught me religion. Yeah, he taught me, he said, you better pray that them grades come up. Yeah, religion. Mama taught me stamina. She said, you're going to sit there until you eat every bit of that broccoli. And while I was learning stamina from Mama, Dad was teaching me hypocrisy. You know hypocrisy? Everybody needs to learn hypocrisy. Dad told me, he said, for the 100th time, quit exaggerating. Hypocrisy. Don't be a hypocrite, y'all. They taught me all kinds of neat stuff. Of course, all this stuff is stuff that you need to pass on to your children. Mama taught me anticipation. She taught me how to anticipate. She told me, she said, you just wait till your father gets home. Yeah. And my dad being a college professor, taught me logic and critical thinking. That's the thing that you can only learn from a college professor. Logic and critical thinking. Yep. The best way he taught me logic and critical thinking is he'd say, because I said so. And generally that was, when he said that, that was pretty logical. And you pretty much let it go at that. Dad also taught me genetics. He'd tell me every now and then, he'd say, "You're just like your mother." But you know, while Dad was teaching me genetics, Mom, she never graduated high school, but she was a smart one now. She taught me, she got a little more philosophical. She taught me behavioral modification. She'd say, "Stop acting like your father." Yeah. Oh, Mom, she was a card now. For somebody that never graduated high school, she was a smart one. She taught me medical science, too. She'd tell me over and over and over, she'd say, "If you don't quit making those faces, it's gonna freeze that way." Now, how did she know that? How do they know these things? Things that you just know that you have to pass on to your own children. You just... How are you kids gonna make it through life without knowing these things? And the wisdom that can come from a college professor. The wisdom, just the utter wisdom. He'd tell me, "Son, when you get my age, you'll understand." And Mom, extrasensory perception. I learned extrasensory perception from my mother. She'd tell me, "Put your jacket on. I know when you're cold." Above all, I learned humor. Now, my dad was a joking man. He joked all the time, but I learned humor from my mother. She'd tell me, "When you cut both of your feet off with that lawnmower, don't come running to me." What? Let me tell you something. I make it sound like we had a real dysfunctional home. It wasn't Ozzie and Harriet. It wasn't Leave It to Beaver. It wasn't the Brady Bunch. We had a very loving family, a very loving home. We had two awesome, awesome parents. Herb and Joanne. I loved them. I loved them dearly. And I wrote this song for them. It's called "Who's Gonna Teach the Children?" I miss them so bad. Water and it shattered. Reached for a pot of clay and it was gone. All of his life he fought for the right to comfort. Now here he stands, too old, too tired, too lost. She reached for a piece of history, and it was ancient. She reached for a shining star, and her hand got burned. Now you might think she's a dreamer, but that's all that she's got left now. Has she tried to reach for you? Well, you think she'd learn? Has it come down to this when nothing matters? Has it come down to this from the start to the end? In the blink of an eye, this life could be over. But tell me, who's gonna teach the children? Who's gonna teach the children? I wanna know who's gonna teach the children. Tell me, who's gonna teach the children? Well, he reached for a coat that was frayed and torn and tattered, and he walked with a cane that held a mighty oak. And she buried the sun in the shade of his left pocket, but her soft voice trembled slightly when she spoke. And she said all of the things that I thought that I believed in. And he said all of the things that I thought I wanted to know. And in the time that it takes for an instant to mark a moment, I felt me reaching out to them, and they were gone. Now has it come down to this where nothing matters? Has it come down to this from the start to the end? In the blink of an eye, this life could be over. But tell me, who's gonna teach the children? Well, has it come down to this where nothing matters? Has it come down to this from the start to the end? In the blink of an eye, this life could be over. But tell me, who's gonna teach the children? Tell me, who's gonna teach the children? I wanna know who's gonna teach the children. Oh, who's gonna teach the children? That's for Herb and Joanne Jones. Thank you, TPC. I'm Ole'Pops.